As Sven wakes up from a vivid dream of his wife, he realizes with a jolt that he's overslept. Quickly, he nudges his daughter Charlie awake. They communicate through sign language and Sven tells her that they are late as his alarm didn't work. Charlie puts on her hearing aid, which brings the sound of the world to life for her. In a rush, they make their way to the community screening just in time. They join the crowd gathered to watch the astronauts return from space, including Sven's wife, Paula, who is part of the crew. Charlie, with her fascination for space, eagerly watches the broadcast, as her mind buzzes with excitement. As they watch, Charlie notices a delay in deploying the parachutes during the spacecraft's descent. With her knowledge of rocket launches and landings, she feels a sense of unease as she explains that in the fourth stage of landing, parachutes should be open. Meanwhile, we see Paula, who seems hesitant to act. Her fellow astronaut asks her to open the parachutes, but Paula looks deeply puzzled by something and it seems like she is unable to hear a word he is saying. Everyone watches them fall to the ground and become anxious, thinking that something might be wrong. However, eventually, Paula snaps out of it and deploys the parachutes just in time for a safe landing. Once on the ground, Paula and her fellow astronauts struggle to adjust to Earth's gravity. They are met by Banisha Mudhi, an Indian billionaire who funded the mission. Mudhi is a source of inspiration for Charlie, who admires her for her philanthropic work and dreams of making a difference like her someday. That night, Paula calls at home, but her voice sounds tense with urgency. She hints at something unusual happening in space but is abruptly cut off when the phone malfunctions. However, before the call ends, she manages to convey a message to Sven about the fox and hare game. Sven gets confused by her statement, but Paula does not say much and tells him that she will see him soon. The next day, Sven and Charlie head to the airport to welcome Paula back. At the airport, they meet Reiner, Paula's boss, who promises to discuss space matters with Charlie later. Also waiting for the returning astronauts are Hadi, Paula's co-astronaut, and his family, including his wife Mira and their children. As they wait, a strange old woman smiles and waves at Charlie, but everyone decides to ignore her. Then, the boys notice that the flight is delayed. Meanwhile, Sven steps away to use the restroom, where he encounters a distraught Japanese woman who sits on the floor and begins panicking. Sven tries to help her, but she doesn't calm down. During this, two other women appear and attend to the woman in distress. When Sven returns, chaos erupts as police swarm the area, informing everyone that contact has been lost with Paula's flight. Sven gets devastated and calls for Charlie. He gets worried when he does not see Mira and the kids. During this, the strange woman from earlier tries to give Sven a handwritten note and tells him that it's for him, but Sven does not take it and goes to find Charlie. He soon finds them and Mira informs him that the plane has somehow vanished and there is no contact with the passengers. Families of the passengers are taken aside and provided with rooms for the night. Trying to maintain a sense of hope, Sven consoles Hadi's children, assuring them that their parents will be all right. However, the weight of the situation hits Sven hard, and he breaks down in the restroom, struggling to keep his emotions in check in front of Charlie. In a flashback, we see Sven, Paula, and their friends hanging out together. Sven teases Paula that she always loses to their daughter while playing the board game Fox and Hare despite having such a high IQ. In the present, Sven is hanging out on the balcony, and their neighbor gives him alcohol. Sven says Paula was right about feeling angry, and he knew it. When the lady asks what he is talking about, he apologizes and calls it a night. During a conference called by the authorities, the families are given the grim news that wreckage from the flight has been discovered in the Atlantic Sea, suggesting that there were no survivors. Meanwhile, in a flashback, Paula and Hadi are shown bonding with their fellow astronauts. It is revealed that Paula had arranged for a radio connection so she could communicate with Charlie while she was in space. In the present, Sven finds himself facing questions from the federal police. They inquire about his cryptic statement regarding Paula being right, which was reported by his neighbor in the hotel. Feeling frustrated and distrustful of the authorities, Sven angrily leaves the building, leaving the hotel with Charlie. Sven encounters another setback when his credit card is declined at the parking lot. However, Nora, Mudhi's assistant, comes to their aid and offers assistance. She also presents Charlie with a box from Mudhi, containing a quote about death being a new beginning. Sven translates it to reassure Charlie that everything will be fine. Upon returning home, Sven is greeted by the preparations they had made to welcome Paula back, which he now sadly tidies up. Then, he listens to a voicemail left by Paula before she boarded the plane, in which she suggests celebrating their 10th anniversary on St. Nicholas Day, the day they supposedly met. Sven gets curious, and calls Mira, Hadi's wife, to inquire if Hadi sounded strange before the flight. Mira explains that he was likely just adjusting to being back from space and advises Sven to cherish hearing Paula's voice one last time. However, Sven finds it odd that Paula mentioned meeting on St. Nicholas Day, as they actually met on a different day. After this, while watching a TV clip of the alleged live telecast of the astronauts' return, Sven notices a 90-minute delay, raising suspicions. He contacts Reiner, but doesn't receive much assistance. In a flashback, Paula speaks to Charlie through a radio connection about how space smells, but the communication abruptly ends. The following morning, Sven wakes up to the distressing news about the missing passengers, observing Charlie watching the news with concern. Charlie is devastated when Sven suggests that Paula might not have survived. Shortly after, some visitors arrive at Sven's house, bearing news from the air traffic control. They play a recording for Sven, in which Paula's voice is heard expressing her love for him. Sven is visibly moved by the message. One of the visitors questions Sven about Paula's presence in the plane's cockpit, leaving Sven puzzled and concerned. Then we see Paula hearing a voice saying hello over the radio, but it's not Charlie's. As Paula hears the distant greeting, she quickly notes down the coordinates on her arm. Eager to investigate further, she attempts to establish communication, but the signal abruptly ceases. Rushing to find Hadi, she shares the discovery with him, sparking a debate about whether they should disclose it to the other astronauts, knowing it could lead to government intervention. Despite their efforts to locate the signal again, they come up empty-handed. Back at home, Sven finds himself in conversation with the police. Meanwhile, Charlie catches a snippet of Paula's voice and becomes frantic, but Sven manages to reassure her. The arrival of Charlie's grandparents brings some comfort to her, but their peace is short-lived when the police inquire about Paula's whereabouts. The federal police conduct a thorough search of the house, suspecting Paula's involvement in the passenger's disappearance. In a flashback, we see Paula who urges Sven to make a critical decision and destroy certain documents. During this, Paula notices a bug crawling on her hand and decides to take a break. The following day, she gathers the other astronauts and attempts to play the recording of the signal, only to find that the clip has mysteriously vanished. During this, Hadi steps in to protect Paula, claiming that she was merely playing a prank. However, Paula becomes increasingly distressed, eventually resorting to stabbing the bug, which results in her bleeding. After waking up from her rest, Paula talks to another fellow astronaut, Benisha, who offers comfort and advises her to return to her duties. Meanwhile, in a flashback, Paula, Sven, Mira, and Hadi are hanging out together. After this, Paula takes a drug, leading to hallucinations. In the present, Sven tries to explain to Charlie that Paula is no longer alive and that she shouldn't wait to hear her voice on the radio. He talks to Mira, and they realize that Paula lied to Sven about taking the pills. Upon returning home, Sven discovers the hidden pills. Soon after, reporters and family members of the plane crash victims arrive at Sven's doorstep, demanding answers. As tensions escalate, they become aggressive and start throwing stones at the house. Sven allows Charlie